Hey, I'm Jenna from the Hesitant Homesteader. Welcome to our channel. Today we're talking about homeschooling, and that's not typically something that we talk about around here. But I wanted to offer some encouragement. Over the last 6 months, I have gotten numerous messages from people from recent friendships all the way back to my days in high school, old friends, saying, I'm thinking about homeschooling. You're one of the only people that I know that's doing it. Can you offer me some direction and some guidance? I am going into my 10th year of homeschooling, and I spent a lot of years reaching out to other homeschool moms and asking for their advice and kind of leaning on them for some direction. And now that I'm on this end of it, I thought that maybe I could offer some encouragement to you. So first of all, I want to tell you that you need to take this one step at a time. I know that it's a big deal to go from just having your kids at home where it doesn't have to be any kind of formal education to homeschooling. And it's also a huge jump to go from being in the public school setting to bringing your kids home to educate them. So I want you to know that I hear you, I understand. I think that one of the most important things about homeschooling is that you just view it as an extension of parenting. God equipped you to be their parent just like He can equip you to be their teacher. It doesn't have to look like what it looks like in the public school, and it most likely is going to look far different than what you know. Now, in my beginning years of homeschooling, I was just as unsure of myself as you are. I remember talking to my husband and saying, I don't even know another person who homeschools so that I can ask them the questions that I have. And so I had to go on a journey of seeking those people out and trying to wrap my head around this new journey that I was about to embark on. Now, I was a person who actually loved public school. I loved the social part of it. I did not even mind the work part of it. I loved new school supplies and all of the stuff that comes along with school. When I started homeschooling, some of the best advice that I got was to not think of my homeschool like I had previously known of the public school system. My day was going to look different. It's not going to be 8 to 3 sitting in your desk and learning a subject at a time. Okay, tip 2 is your schedule. Your schedule does not have to look like public school. It does not have to look like the other homeschoolers that you know. That is the beauty of homeschooling, is that you get to choose what works for your family and when is the most convenient time. You might have a kid that doesn't think well first thing in the morning, but in the afternoon or the evening, you've got them and you can get through your work a lot quicker. You might have a husband who is off on Friday and you don't want to spend your day homeschooling on Friday when he's home. You want to be out doing fun things, so you choose to not homeschool on Friday. That's totally okay. So I want you to know that your schedule is not going to look the same as anybody else. The other thing about schedule is that you have to be flexible. When you have your kids in public school, you know the awesomeness of being able to schedule appointments, to go to the doctor, to get your groceries, to do things that just have to happen in order to run your life. And when you homeschool, your kids are going to be with you all the time. So you need to just make sure that you're flexible. If you have doctor's appointments that day, it's okay. You can move your school to a different time of the day, or you can take it with you in the car. You can do it in the doctor's office. It's not going to be a cut and dry, beautiful, perfect thing. Now, I'm a little bit OCD with stuff like this, and so it's really hard for me sometimes to wrap my head around getting out of our routine and out of our schedule. But you know what? Everybody is still thriving, and we're still doing great on our testing. Everybody's living. It's great. Now, when your kids are younger, it's going to take you an hour or 2 max to get through their schoolwork. It should not take over their entire day. Give them time to get outside and to play and to just be a kid. They should be able to get through their work. Now, this is, mind you, that they will sit down and do their stuff and just get through it. But it really doesn't take all that much time to get through the essential things when they're young. As they get older, yes, you're gonna add in longer days, but that's gonna grow with you and it's just gonna seem a natural fit. an addition. Within the scheduling portion of this, I want to encourage you to make time for yourself. That typically for my friends who homeschool means that you're getting up earlier in the day than your kids are, so that you can have your alone time with the Lord, or you can exercise, that you can get done what makes you function and be at your best that day. For me, my ideal morning is that I get up and I spend time in the Word, that I get my exercising in, and that I am showered and dressed prior to anybody waking up. Now, when I have a new baby, it's not that realistic, but there have been times through my years of homeschooling that is my schedule every day. And I feel my best when I'm ready to just get going for the day and get all of our work done. I'm going to share our schedule with you, not so that you copy it or think that this is the correct way to do it, because that's just not true. I'm just going to tell you what my family does and what works for us. It has taken trial and error. One of the things you need to try to gauge is when your child is at their peak learning time. Some kids function great early in the morning, and that's their best thinking time. Some kids are tired and slow in the mornings, and you might do better to not start school until 2 o'clock in the afternoon. You're going to need to figure out what's going to work with their rhythm and yours, and how that's going to look for your family. So my schedule looks like me getting up in the morning, doing my routine, and the kids getting out of bed by about 7:30 or 8 in the morning. At 8 o'clock, they're eating breakfast, and they need to have a handful of chores done before we start school, which typically is at 10. So each of my kids has their own laundry day. They are responsible for getting their laundry, starting it partway through the day. When we do lunch, they're responsible for moving it to the dryer. Later in the afternoon, then they have to remove them from the dryer, get them folded, and put them away that day, so that the following day another kid has access to the laundry. So if it's their laundry day, they have to get that started. School is going to start at 10. At 10 o'clock, we go upstairs and we do what I call morning time. A lot of homeschoolers implement this into their school day, and the way that I have done it, and it's recommended a lot of times, is that you fill a basket or a box with the things that are crucial. Like, if everything crumbles and falls apart today, we're at least going to get through these things. And so in my box, I have things like our devotion time. They're going to do a scripture memory verse. They are going to do their memory work for our co-op, because we do a classical Claritas co-op. So they're doing memory work for that. And we're doing a read aloud time where we're reading through a novel together. And those, in my mind, are crucial. I want these things done every single day. And I might not feel the most accomplished, but I've at least done that. So morning time starts at 10. That typically takes about an hour. Depending on how antsy the little kids are during that time or how well they sit still, I can gauge about an hour. At 11 o'clock, we move from our loft into the homeschool room, and that's when everybody starts their individualized work. I have schedules created for them that they post, and so on Monday, they might have to do handwriting, typing, math, reading, yada yada. And then Tuesday, they probably aren't going to do typing again, but they are going to replace that with something else. So there's one for each day, so we post their list up on the wall, and they start working through their list. So when your kids are little, they obviously are going to need more help because they don't have the reading ability to just sit there and do all of their work by themselves. So I'm typically sitting next to my youngest kid that's doing their schoolwork and helping them until somebody else needs my attention. As they get older, the goal in this for me is to create an independent learner and an independent thinker. So when I post a list up on the wall, the purpose of that list is not to be a control freak, not to make sure that everything is checked off at the end of the day, but to create a child that is able to look at things that need to happen and that they can work through them on their own and be motivated and able to do the tasks that need to be done that day. When they're little, you're looking at a couple of hours a day at the most. We work from 11 o'clock until about 1 o'clock. At 1, I really like for everybody that is younger to be complete with their schoolwork for the day. In the afternoon, they can have quiet time, they can read. More ideally, they can go outside and play. So being done by lunch helps our day to function and run more smoothly. When lunch is complete, there are a few more chores that take place, and then the older kids head back upstairs and they do their work that they typically don't need assistance for in any way. Third, you need to familiarize yourself with your state regulations. Every state has a different set of standards for homeschoolers. Some are stricter than others. Where I am in Ohio, you can either set up yourself as an 08 school, which essentially says that you're a private school, or you can set up just as a traditional homeschooler. If you do the traditional homeschooling route, that is what I have done thus far. I am required to report to our local school district at the end of every school year before the following one begins, either a standardized test or an evaluation done by a licensed teacher. It's fairly painless. It does cost me about $50 per kid, whichever way I go. Another group that you want to familiarize yourself with is HSLDA, which is the Homeschool Legal Defense group, and they are going to be a great resource for you as to how to find those regulations, and they are there to help defend homeschoolers if they were ever to run into any kind of legal issue. So they're a great group to be a part of. I highly encourage that you would join them. Fourth is a really important tip in my mind. You need to determine your style of learning. There are a lot of different methods out there, from classical education to Montessori to unschooling to Charlotte Mason. There's a lot of options for homeschooling. If you can determine which style is going to work best for your family, you can greatly minimize the amount of curriculum that you're going to have to go through. There's a website that's called Kathy Duffy, and on that site, there is a whole breakdown of pretty much every curriculum that exists. You can learn about the styles of education. You can read what it looks like to be somebody that teaches a Charlotte Mason method. Then you can choose the curriculums that line up with that method. It works beautifully. If you're unsure of what your method is, even after reading through the lists and the descriptions of everything, there are some tests that are available online where you can actually answer a series of questions, and it'll say you are definitely geared more towards a classical, Montessori, whatever type of education. It can kind of wrap it up. I've taken the test on a couple of different sites and come up with pretty similar answers. For me, it's very heavily leaned towards classical education and unschooling, which I find to be a hilarious match, but it asked me a lot of questions like, do you think that it's really important that kids get a lot of time outside? Well, I do. Does that mean that my method of teaching is going to be letting my kids roam and do nature studies every day? But no, because I'm also really passionate about the classical method of learning. So we have a balance in our home of we're going to do our work, we're going to get all of this done, and then we're going to go outside and we're going to learn things like how to garden and how to preserve food and a lot of things that probably fall into the category of unschooling. So my test was really mixed. A lot of my homeschool friends have done it as well, and they are not straight across the board either. So just know that when you're picking your curriculum, it is not a dead set, I have to pick every single book that is classical education. It just isn't going to work that way. It can help guide you and kind of direct where you start learning about the different curriculums that are available. Once you've determined what style of learning you are, there are some really, really great reading lists that are available based on age of your child. I have used these reading lists for a lot of years now and found them to be a really great fit for us. So it's definitely an added bonus is figuring out what that method is and starting to implement it. Step 5 is about choosing your curriculum. I know that it seems daunting and a huge task to pick through all of the stuff that is available and narrow it down to what you think is going to be the perfect fit for your family. Now, by all means, you need to do that. You need to look at the options, read about them, but please don't stew over it for too long. Eventually, you're going to have to just jump in and give it a try. You're going to find that there are things that work and things that don't work. So please don't feel like you are married to the curriculum. If it's not working, if it's causing tears, if it's causing frustration, if you don't understand the curriculum or how it's working, get rid of it. Sell it. There are used homeschool book sites. There are Facebook groups for it. Sell it and move on to something that is going to work. I highly recommend that you talk to other parents that are homeschooling too. Ask for their advice. Do not be ashamed to say, I've got a kid with dyslexia and I need some help figuring out a reading curriculum that's going to work for his needs. You are going to find that most of us have kids that deal with something. So don't be afraid to disclose that, to share that information with people, and just ask for guidance, because typically there's somebody out there that's tried it that can say, yes, this is awesome. No, that didn't work. Here's a better fit. So reach out. If you don't know of other homeschoolers, there is almost always a Facebook group where it is specific to your county or your region. Otherwise, there's a Christian homeschool family group. There is a nationwide just homeschooling group. They just get bigger and bigger. There's always people on there that are willing to answer your questions and help in any way that they can. In the description, I will share our list of curriculum that I use. I have tried a lot of things over the years, and I have kind of finally found our groove. What works for my family. Now, there's been times where I'm using a curriculum and I think to myself, maybe I should switch it up. And then I have to remind myself it's working. Don't change it unless it's broken. That's my recommendation. If it's broken, get rid of it as fast as you can, because you don't want to waste your time and energy banging your head against the wall. There are going to be curriculums that just don't fit. That's fine. You just need to find what does. When you go to purchase your curriculum, is also, because people are selling their curriculum, like I told you, there are sites that you can buy used curriculum or curriculums that people tried and they used them for 2 weeks and they said, not for me, but it could be perfect for you. So I would recommend that you look there first before you spend full price on a curriculum, because they can get really pricey. Another option is to go to your local library and ask them if they have homeschool books. I know that our local library carries the math curriculum that we use. It carries some of the writing resources. So you might want to take a look, if it's not to use it, but to at least thumb through, look through, see what the book looks like, if your kid's going to be drawn to it or not. I like to touch things and feel them before I jump in, but sometimes you just have to jump. In the spring, they often have homeschool conventions, and I have gone to those several times so that I can walk around to the different vendors, I can look through things, I can listen to seminars and kind of see what I think is going to be a good fit for my family. At this point in the year, I don't think that there are any more options for that, so you're going to just need to jump in. You're going to do great though. Okay, number 6 is to find your people. When I started homeschooling, I can legitimately say that I didn't know a single person who was homeschooling. Now, I had a couple of friends who had been homeschooled, but this was years ago, and homeschooling looked a lot different then. So I found one person who was volunteering at the pregnancy center where I worked at the time. And I said to her, I'm thinking about homeschooling. I really am feeling drawn to this and led by God to do this. I don't know why, but I don't have a clue what I'm doing. Can you help me? In that moment, she invited me to an open house that they were having at their homeschool group, and I went and I fell in love. I think that homeschooling carries with it this stigma that it's a whole bunch of women wearing their long jean skirts and a bun. While that's okay if that's you, homeschooling is not just that anymore. It is filled with all different walks of life and different types of people. And so when I walked into this homeschool co-op, I was floored that there were people that looked like me and had the same beliefs as me, and there were people who were completely different, and that was awesome and great. Being a part of this group for many years was kind of my life support. When I had no idea what to do, they were who I turned to. When I felt overwhelmed or I struggled with something, or I had a kid that was just fighting me on everything, they were the people that I went to and talked to, and it was so comforting to just know that they were in the same boat. It feels so good to know that I'm not just screwing my kids up, that it's not just my kids that don't listen sometimes, it's not mine that throw themselves on the floor and cry when you ask them to do something, that it was everybody. It also was a great encouragement to me to be able to ask them for advice on curriculums, for advice on parenting. These people became my people. They have become my absolute closest friends. I adore each and every one of them. And just a couple of years ago, we moved that co-op into a different way of doing things, and we started our own. And every single family traveled with us because we're like a family, and nobody wanted to be separated from that group because we value it so much. So I encourage you to find your people. Can you homeschool on your own? Absolutely. You can do it. I could do it at this point. I feel equipped. I feel like I know what I'm doing. But God also calls us to be in community with people and to wrap our arms around each other and say, you know what, we've got this. We can do it. My kids really love Community Day. That's where their friends are. We're there all day, one day a week. And ours is pretty education based. Some co-ops are more fun. You might get together to do field trips or art projects and things like that. And that's awesome too, because you're still creating a group of community of like-minded people. Ours is very education based, so they have classes that they attend all throughout the day, and then we go home, and throughout the week that's what they're working on at home. So they're going to learn their new memory work there, they're going to have grammar, they're going to have a science class, they're having actual classes at their co-op, but they travel around with their same friends in the same class all day long, and they adore Community Day. When things shut down, it was hard for us because we miss our people. Because we homestead and live out on a farm, it's easier to isolate yourself and just say we're good. And so when everything shut down with COVID, there was a level of contentment there because we do spend so much time here already, and this is our life, and we work the land and homeschool and all of those things. But we so badly missed our church family and our homeschool group. And so we were so glad when we could see them all again. Now the seventh thing that I want to share with you is just something that I just want to share my heart with you about, and that is that homeschooling, it magnifies your greatest weaknesses and sin, just like parenting does. And there's going to be days that are really difficult. And there's going to be days where you think to yourself, why in the world did I ever think this was a good idea? There's going to be days when you call your spouse crying and overwhelmed. I have had days where my husband walked through the door and I grabbed the keys and without saying a word, I left. Because there are days that are just hard. Now, that being said, I want to encourage you in that, because even with the hard days, it is so rewarding when you get to have those meaningful conversations with your kids that are going to be impactful for the rest of their life, and you know that they're going to take that with them. It's worth it when you see things click and you finally see your kid grasp onto a new concept. It's moments like those that happen far more than the bad days. And so I just want to encourage you that yes, there are going to be really hard times. And that's normal. It doesn't mean that you were not meant to be a homeschooler. It doesn't mean that you're just not cut out for this, because every single homeschooler that I know has the same struggles. So I like to try to think of it as though I'm God's workmanship, just as are my kids, that He's molding us and making us into what He intended for us to be. And so there's going to be some bumps and bruises along the way that just seem like it's impossible in the moment, but totally worth it in the end. So I just want to encourage you to step out, to take that jump, to find your people and ask them for the help that you need. If you have questions about anything or you need direction, I would be happy to help you. You can find us both on Instagram and on Facebook under the Hesitant Homesteader. Instagram is just Hesitant Homesteader, but you are welcome to ask any questions that you have or just reach out. I would love to hear from you and help you in any way that I can. I really hope that this has been an encouragement to you and that you feel equipped and ready to take the plunge, because I know that you can do it. We'll catch you on the next one.